Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Today we are having a look at the next one in our Annoying Agenda series. So this is Jinteki, the Kings of Net Damage, and we've got two cards to look at here, Obokata Protocol and then Sting. So let's load into our little test game. The first one we're going to look at, Obokata Protocol, very, very straightforward one. As an additional cost to steal Obokata Protocol, the runner must suffer 4 net damage. So this means in order for them to actually steal it, they have to suffer 4 net damage from hand, but because it's an additional cost, they can choose not to do this. Okay, they can choose not to do it at all. They could hit the agenda, look at it and go, I've only got 3 cards in hand, that's fine, I'm going to leave it because otherwise I'll die. Or they could look at it with 6 cards, 7 cards in hand, look at it and say, actually I can't afford to lose maybe my 3 breakers or whatever it is they've got in hand, and they decide, actually I'm just going to not steal that and leave it on the table exactly as is. So Obokata is a fairly straightforward one. The runner gets the choice of whether they steal it or not. The corporation that you'll see it most commonly twinned with is PE, Personal Evolution. Whenever an agenda is scored or stolen, do 1 net damage. So this means that in total it's done here in 2 different instances. So if the runner steals this agenda, then they do 4 net damage, and then 1 net damage happens afterwards. So 4 then 1, and they've got 5 in total, but it does happen in 2 chunks. If it's scored, nothing happens, but again, if it's twinned with PE, then you would have 1 net damage done afterwards as well. So Obokata is a fairly straightforward one. Sting is not very straightforward. 3 advancement, 1 agenda point. Agenda, when a player scores or steals this agenda, do X net damage. X is equal to the number of copies of Sting in the other player's scored area plus 1. Sting is a really complicated one to try and work out. The easiest way to do it is you only need to think about what your opponent has. So if you are the corporation and you install it, let's give ourselves an extra click so we can score it as well. Advance this 3 times. Now as we're about to score this, all we need to do is look at our opponent's score area. Okay, up here they've got none of these, so it's 0 plus 1, so we're going to do 1 net damage when we score it. Then PE is going to trigger, and we're going to do 2 net damage, one after the other. So in total we should see 2 cards disappear from the runner's hand here. We choose which one first. We'll do Sting first, and then PE, and they've lost 2 cards. If we had more clicks, and a few more credits, if we were to score another one, it only depends on what your opponent has got in their score area. So if I score this, they still have none. It's still going to do 1 net damage, and then it's going to do 1 from PE afterwards. So 2 in total. The difficult part comes in when there are things in your opponent's score area. So let's put this up to 3. Let's install this one in a new remote. And then let's leave it there. And let's go over to our runner and try and work out what would happen for the runner as they've got to do that. So if we're the runner now, we've got 1 card in hand. We think this might be a Sting, or we have to be prepared that it could be a Sting. What are we going to have to do? How much damage are we facing? Well, if we're the runner, if we steal that, then the corporation score area has got 2. We're stealing Sting, so we have to add that 1 more on. So that's going to do 3 net damage, plus 1 from PE afterwards. So that's going to end up doing 4 net damage in total. So if our runner is aware and thinking about what's happening, then they should be able to draw 3 cards. Then they should be able to run the server. Sting is going to look at the opponent's score area and say, they've got 2, add 1. No further actions. And then they've lost their total hand, they've lost 4 altogether. So Sting is a complicated one to think about and look at initially, but the easiest way to do is ignore what you have in your score area. That doesn't matter. It only matters what happens to your opponent's score area as well. Cards that these are twinned with. So we have this ice, Kikugo. Kikugo is a horrible ice to deal with. When the runner passes Kikugo, do 1 net damage. So what you can often find is you'll find things like I'm going to add a few more clicks in here. An ice that is Kukugo. We're just going to res that so we can see it. And then you might find that Obokata is sitting behind it. And then this becomes really difficult to deal with because now the runner has got to take a net damage from Kinkugo. It's got to take 4 net damage from Obokata Protocol and then 1 net damage from Jinteki Personal Evolution as well. So you're starting to really, really ramp up the amount of net damage. Jinteki decks always net damaging you. There's very, very few Jinteki decks that don't involve some kind of net damage. It's their theme, it's what they want to do the entire time. So really, really tricky to deal with, but not impossible. You just have to be aware of what's happening. Another one that you want to be careful of, another ice in here. We're going to need a lot of credits for this one. Very big ice is a Nancy. So a Nancy, 8 cost, 5 strength sentry, 3 subroutines. The biggest part of a Nancy though is its encounter ability. Whenever an encounter with a Nancy ends, do 3 net damage unless the runner broke all subroutines on it. So if the runner hits a Nancy and nothing happens, they're not able to break it, then the subroutines will fire and then 3 net damage happens on top of that as well. And this counts if you bypass it. So if you're using After Image and you're using your stealth credits to bypass the ice, that encounter with a Nancy still happened, you still take the 3 net damage afterwards as well. So you can see how the net damage really starts to stack up here as you're going along. Trying to steal an Obokata or trying to steal a Sting as well. Against Jinteki, trying to steal their agendas, a lot of the time your cards are more relevant and more precious to you in your hand than they are used for their ability. So if you had something like a Dirty Laundry or a Sure Gamble, that's a card. That's a hit point, if you like, for you. And those credits might not be the biggest thing in the world. You might be better holding on to a Dirty Laundry and spending a couple of extra clicks clicking for money rather than using the card. I've lost more games than I could count by not being able to steal an Obokata because I've ended the whole of my deck's gone and I've had 3 cards in hand and the runners just put Obokata on the table, no ice in front of it at all, and it's game over. I can't go and steal it. I can't do anything. And yeah, they just whittle you down. Not impossible to deal with, but you just need to have it in the back of your mind what's going to happen, what are you trying to face when you're dealing with a Jinteki deck. Thanks for watching. See you again.